from Kansas State University, this is Agriculture Today. Eric Atkinson here, and coming up today, K-State's KC Olson will tell of an emerging new method of livestock identification that K-State had a hand in developing. It utilizes facial recognition technology by way of a phone app that's expected to be unveiled this fall. KC believes this to be a major step forward in the cause of cattle disease traceability. Then, from the latest Cattle Chat podcast from the Beef Cattle Institute at K-State, a look at how you cow-calf producers can use the USDA's Livestock Risk Protection Program as a means of managing your market risk. And on this week's K-State Horticulture segment later on, then, Gregg Eyestone on planting spring flowering bulbs here in the fall. All that and more next on Agriculture Today.
A social distancing tip.
Putting distance between yourself and others is critical to slowing the spread of coronavirus. So here are ways to stay in contact without the physical contact part. Call, send a text, set up a video conference, post on social media, dedicate a song on the radio. If you have symptoms of fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath, call your healthcare provider before going to their office. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part, because we're all #AloneTogether. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
You're tuned in to Agriculture Today. We're glad to have you aboard as we take time during this first segment to tell you about a new development which may well be the next big thing in livestock identification, including cattle ID. Along with us now is an individual who is involved in the development of this technology. KC Olson is a beef cattle scientist at K-State. And what we're going to look at here today, KC, is facial identification of livestock. What's the story behind this potentially significant step?
Well, there's an interesting story here, Eric. Usually when I come on your show, I'm talking about prescribed fire and I'm talking about prairie health and things like that. But because of a relationship that I developed, through my research activities, I was invited into a very interesting project a little less than a year ago. And the point of my involvement at that time was just to help a Kansas company find resources here at Kansas State University to develop an idea that they had for national animal disease traceability. I was successful in helping those folks find the resources that they had on this campus, some folks in computer engineering, some folks in vet medicine, some folks in animal science. And we have had a very interesting year thinking about this project. Many of your listeners would be aware that human facial recognition is now in some places a standard for identification in airports and other secure locations. That technology is based on the geometry of the human head, the face. It uses a bunch of intricate measurements of the human face to put a permanent identification on a human being, so that later on, when that human being needs to get on a flight or something similar, they can have a hat on, they can have glasses on, they could have grown facial hair, they could have grown older. Okay, but that technology is capable of nearly 100% accurate read rate. So the thinking here is that why couldn't we have something like that for beef cattle that we could then use to create a national animal disease traceability system? We began talking to the industry sometime last winter. Through the efforts of a colleague in veterinary medicine, we were able to collect 1,000 short videos of feeder cattle that were restrained in a chute, just sort of a panoramic view of the animal's head. And with colleagues from computer engineering, they were able to parse individual images out of those short, I think there were 5 to 7 second videos, individual images of animals' heads, 1,000 different animals. And then these were uploaded to a new generation of modeling tool called a neural network, which is a form of artificial intelligence, and it's self-learning. Okay, there's no need to teach it. Okay, all the little intricate biometric measurements of the face, because it teaches itself which of those measurements are critical. Late last spring, our colleagues from computer sciences called us together and they said, look, we've got something here. So the general process was to take some of those images and feed those to the neural network, so to speak, so that it could train itself. There were some images, though, that were withheld from the model. So it hadn't seen those before. And then to test the neural network, it was shown images of cattle that it had seen before, although not the same images. They were different photographs. But images of cattle that the neural network had seen before, images of cattle that the neural network had not seen before. 94% of the time, the neural network gave us a positive yes or a positive no.
Now, that's a percentage that makes one sit up and take notice, isn't it?
Yes. These results were encouraging enough where that company invested in the development of a cell phone application. What this cell phone app will do for any producer that wants to participate, okay, you simply position the cell phone camera in front of an animal. When the conditions are right, as judged by the app, it will snap a series of pictures. It will put a GPS stamp on each one and a date stamp on each one. Okay, and those are automatically uploaded to a secure cloud database. Any subsequent time, okay, that another producer or another owner would be curious about the origins of a particular calf, they could use the same app. Okay, take the pictures, upload those to the database. The information that they would then receive, okay, is when the animal was read into the system and physically where the animal was when it was read into the system.
The basics of an ID, then.
The basics of an ID. So to get the app up and running, it's expected to be commercialized this fall yet. But to get the app up and running, that's all that it does right now. Okay, but in the very near future, possibly before 2021, producers that want to will be able to add things like birth dates, weaning weights, vaccination history. I mean, other things that have value. The information as it transits, through this system is guarded by blockchain integrity. It can't be altered. It can only be added to by somebody who has a legal right to add to it, i.e., a subsequent owner of a calf or controller of a calf in the beef marketing chain. And the potential here is that, animals could be read into the system at a very early age. And the last time, that we would be able to harvest information about that calf would be immediately prior to harvest in a packing plant. Now, I've only learned in the last 48 hours the huge degree of industry enthusiasm that's involved here. Regionally speaking, cattle feeders, packers are interested. Seed stock producers are interested because for them it's a way to capture a lot of information in a very convenient way. For producers who don't want anything to do with a national disease traceability system, that's fine. Nobody is compelled to participate. The program, if you want to call it that, is completely flexible. An animal can be read into the database at any time. It could be the first point of sale after it leaves its ranch of origin, or any time subsequent to that. So this product, as you'll see it as a cell phone app, is called Cattle Tracks.
This is large enough of a potential breakthrough that it begs a lot of questions. One is fairly generic, and that is that cattle exhibit distinctive enough facial characteristics that this will work. Because when we look at a pen of cattle so many times to our naked eye, they appear to be almost identical at times.
True.
But this will sort them out.
This will sort them out. There's enough homogeneity in the human population where, with people we don't know at least, we tend to have some difficulty telling them apart.
Right.
But the sort of first-generation technology that's based on biometric measurements is capable, in the eyes of some, of 100% accuracy. So we're talking about a system here that has an incremental cost that's close to zero that nobody would be compelled to use, but there would be economic incentives provided by the beef industry to participate. We already know that age and source verification, for example, can be marketed for an individual animal to have greater monetary value. Well, we would get that with this system, but we would potentially get a great deal more, including, that all-critical element of biosecurity for our industry. And the thinking is that this eventually can be applicable to most mammalian livestock species. And right now I'm thinking of hogs and dairy cattle.
This sounds to put it this way, Casey, utopic in as far as animal ID. Are there any drawbacks that need to be overcome yet?
Well, I mean, there are still things to be developed. The full utility of the app probably won't be available for several months. The application itself, though, I'm told that its release is imminent. And any producer that wants to will be able to access this app. There may be a small fee attached to it. I don't know at this point. It may be free for the producer. But basically, the major limitation is the size of the database. The bigger it is, the smarter the neural network is, the higher accuracy becomes. Okay, buy-in by the beef industry is absolutely essential to make it as robust as possible.
The cattle producer community should be watching for more word on this relatively soon, you say. There will have to be a learning curve involved as far as individual producers are concerned. But as you describe this, that sounds like that is not a huge obstacle into itself either.
No, I don't think so. A lot of thought has gone into what kind of a photographic platform would be ideal. And I know that several things have been evaluated. You know, cameras that are mounted in chutes, for example, that catch animals as they run by, multiple animals at a time. That turned out to not be stable enough to get a clear image. So at this point, the animal has to be stationary, possibly restrained. But the beauty of this is that the app really does all the thinking and clicks the picture at the most opportune moment. The cell phones that we have access to today actually have much higher camera resolution than is actually needed to enter animals into this database.
We'll watch for more word on it and see what develops with this new facial recognition technology, which can lend to livestock identification, and it will be of express interest, as you say, to the cattle industry. Thanks for letting us know.
Appreciate you having me, Eric.
That from KC Olson. Casey is a beef cattle scientist here at Kansas State University. Once more, Casey among a team of researchers at Kansas State who were instrumental in pushing forward this technology to see if it would be functional for cattle ID purposes. We'll have more for you on this Agriculture Today.
For information on threatening weather, you should depend on the National Weather Service and their broadcast on NOAA Weather Radio. NOAA Weather Radio is an all-hazards radio network that provides up-to-the-minute weather information, including life-saving warnings anytime, day or night. NOAA Weather Radio also broadcasts information on man-made disasters, such as chemical spills, amber alerts, or other national emergencies. For the National Weather Service, I'm Bill Curtis.
You are tuned in to Agriculture Today. This year has been a perfect illustration of just how economically volatile the cattle business can be. One can just point to the market upheaval caused by the pandemic last spring. Mastering economic risk management has long been a quest of cattle producers. Often that's easier said than done. In the recent Cattle Chat podcasts produced by the Beef Cattle Institute here at Kansas State University, one specific approach to risk management for cow-calf producers earned the attention of the panel, the USDA's Livestock Risk Protection Program, or LRP. In essence, that is financial risk insurance for you producers. And leading that discussion, K-State livestock economist Dustin Pendell, who was joined in the conversation by veterinarians Bob Larson and, as moderator, Brad White.
A few episodes ago, we talked about different types of risk and how to protect from that risk. One of the programs that we wanted to talk about today is the Livestock Risk Protection Tool or Livestock Risk Protection Program. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the Livestock Risk Protection, which is commonly referred to as LRP. It is an insurance product, so it is a risk management tool. It's offered through the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture's Risk Management Agency, and this LRP policy protects producers from adverse price changes in the underlying livestock market. Now, this policy, it does not cover from other perils such as diseases or death. It is just for the underlying livestock market price. This is for feeder calves They also have products for fed cattle, I believe, also for lamb and swine. And as we said, as I mentioned, it's really designed to insure against declining market prices. What's nice about it is you can choose from a variety of coverage levels. I believe anywhere from 70 to 100% of the actual ending value. It also allows you to pick from different insurance time periods, and that's nice because it allows you to match when your feeder cattle would normally be marketed. But again, this is just one form of risk management. There's a lot of other options out there that we've talked about in the past, whether that be futures markets or forward contracts, et cetera.
So from a cow-calf, what are some of the things, if I was going to do this as a cow-calf producer, what are some of the advantages or disadvantages of going this way versus some of the other options that are out there?
I guess one advantage, maybe thinking the futures market, the contracts are already set. I believe feeder cattle are 50,000 pound contracts.
Yeah.
Whereas with LRP, if you want to buy 10 head, you buy for 10 head. They put a max. You can do up to 2,000 animals, 2,000 head per year. So that's one nice advantage. The other nice advantage is it allows you to pick different lengths of time for your contracts. So that which allows you for your marketing, you can pick different weight ranges. I think under 600 pounds or over 600, between 600 and 900. And so those are just a couple of maybe some advantages of LRP.
It seems to me also and this may be true for other price risk management tools as well, but I've got a lot of flexibility to match my level of risk aversion. So if I'm really risk averse, I can purchase at a level that's going to be more expensive, but it's going to kick in quicker. If I'm willing to take a little more risk, so me and my brother-in-law and my cousin down the road, we can all use this tool, but we may use it pretty differently.
Well, Andrew, I think the contract thing is a big thing too, because your contract size is on a per head basis instead of a truckload size lot.
That's one. Another thing that I forgot to one benefit, I guess, could be is some of those premium subsidies. The premium subsidy that you would pay for it is being subsidized by USDA. So that would be another benefit. And they actually just upped some of those premium subsidies back starting in July of this year.
So if I'm thinking about LRP or some sort of risk protection, is there any way for me to compare LRP versus maybe more traditional puts or hedges or things like that?
Yes, absolutely. There is a tool on agmanager.info titled the Feeder Cattle Risk Management Tool that's developed way back when by Kevin Duvetter. It's currently being updated by a colleague of mine, Glenn Tonzer. It's a spreadsheet. You input some different information into it, which will come from a couple different websites, whether that's RMA, the Risk Management Agency, Chicago Mercantile Exchange, looking at futures, or Ag Manager, or Beef Basis also. And so what it is it allows you to compare different options, whether you're just going to sell at the cash price, whether it's a hedge, whether it's LRP. It's also got puts and calls. And so, again, it's a useful tool if you're thinking about should you or what might be the best option between various risk management.
And because it's updated with those other sites, if I enter the data, it gives me kind of a real-time type comparison between which is the best option?
It is updated on not a daily basis, but what you can do is you can go in and pull up the daily information if you want to look at actual ending values or your premium, your quotes from either CME or from the LRP websites. So you can look that information up and you can directly enter it into the spreadsheets. Same thing with your fed cattle basis. You go to beefbasis.com, pull that up, your fed cattle or your feeder cattle basis. You can enter into it. And then it's all set up to calculate all your looking at the futures, the cash, LRP, puts, calls, et cetera.
Excellent. And so when would let's say I'm a spring calver, when would I think about using either LRP or some other form of risk management? When should I think about using that for my calves? Is it now when we're close to sales? Should I do it after they're born? Pros and cons there?
Well, you probably have to wait until it's after they're born, right? I doubt they would, like any other insurance product, life insurance. You're probably not going to go purchase it after somebody has, passed away.
Right.
So after they're born, you could do that. You can take a look at what that expected price is going to be when you anticipate selling them. You can wait a little while longer too. I mean, there are some, you have to purchase it. You can't sell it to purchase and sell. There are certain dates, 30 days out, for example. You can't sell your calves before that 30-day window when you would sell it. But you definitely have to wait until after the calves are born, and I guess you just have to evaluate what your expected selling prices are going to be and your various risk tolerances as well.
So the further I go into the future, the longer I may have that policy may change the costs, or if I'm looking at traditional hedging or puts, but then the less I know about what that market's going to be like in the future, right? So if I do it right after the calves are born, I really don't have a good feel for what's going to happen for the market in the future, but I'm locked in. So I have to understand what level of risk protection am I looking to get, right? So am I putting a floor under them, or what am I trying? What's my goal?
Right. You definitely need to know. You need to know that. And just as an example, look back to last spring, what happened in the cattle markets, right, with COVID. Yeah. So could you imagine, just think about before COVID, if you were thinking about it, versus after, the differences in expecting selling prices or what those premiums?
Yeah, that would have been kind of nice to have some insurance floor under those calves that were sold kind of right after the packing plants were closed down and things like that. That it would have been nice to have some downside risk protection. But it comes with a cost, and it kind of depends. At least when I think about people I work with, risk tolerance is vastly different between people, and some of that's personality, some of that's how much they're leveraged currently, and that's probably why it's kind of hard to come up with a one-size-fits-all or best answer for everybody. It's, well, give yourself a floor, but that floor might be different between each of us or anybody else.
Absolutely,
yeah,
and I think that's what makes it unique for each operation, is you have to understand why you're doing it. And I think you can't put it, the other thing, Bob, what you said, I think relevant to timing, you can't put it in place after something happens like this spring, right? You can't put it in, you can't wait till the event and then go, oh, I wish I had risk management. You have to decide that before.
I don't think anybody's going to offset my risk once I'm in the middle of a disaster.
No. Sorry, Dustin, I jumped in on you. What did you have something else?
No, I was just going to say exactly what you were saying, that everybody's operations are going to be unique, whether it's size, geographic locations, the various risks, the tolerance of that individual. So it's all going to be a little different. And just one final thing, Brad, you bring this up. If people are interested in learning more about it, you might want to go out and visit the USDA Risk Management Agency's website, and they've got a list of all the approved livestock insurance agents on their website. They also list the premium rates, the coverage prices, the actual ending values. That's posted, and that's updated on a daily basis.
Those remarks from K-State's Dustin Pendell, Bob Larson, and Brad White. To access all the information on the USDA's Livestock Risk Protection Program, go to rma.usda.gov and search for Livestock Risk Protection. Also take advantage of those tools that Dustin mentioned at agmanager.info. As for the entire BCI Cattle Chat podcasts, they're found at ksubci.org, ksubci.org. We'll return with more in a few moments here on Agriculture Today.
Kansas farmers and ranchers are helping feed your family in the world. The largest contributor to the Kansas economy is beef cattle. How do you get that juicy steak on your plate? In order for you to enjoy your tasty meal, it requires the hard work of the producers, marketers, advertisers, processors, inspectors, transporters, packers, and consumers. So thank all these people and sit back, relax, and enjoy your tasty meal.
You're tuned to Agriculture Today over the K-State Radio Network. Once again, in our 96th year of broadcast service to agriculture in Kansas and the Central Plains. Eric Atkinson with you. Now, today's lead stories in agricultural news, courtesy in part of DTN. Well, with the House passing that continuing resolution late Tuesday to fund the government through December the 11th, the USDA can now use the Commodity Credit Corporation to make payments to producers with no interruption. The bill blocks any possibility of using CCC funds for oil refineries, and it also gives the USDA flexibility in implementing nutrition programs. The vote was 359 to 57. Republicans and rural Democrats emphasized that the continuing resolution will allow producers to get both their regular subsidies and the second round of the coronavirus food assistance program payments. Urban Democrats were emphasizing the inclusion of the nutritional aid. The CCC is a $30 billion line of credit at the Treasury Department that the USDA uses to make payments, mostly, of course, to producers. That account needs to be replenished annually. It's now up to the Senate to consider that continuing resolution. Senate Agriculture Committee Chairman Pat Roberts of Kansas said this bipartisan deal is, in his words, a step in the right direction on behalf of agricultural producers, especially at a time when markets are unpredictable and prices are low. Senate Agriculture Committee Ranking Member Debbie Stabenow said that she remains concerned about unfairness in ad hoc USDA payments and that she will continue to provide oversight to ensure that payments are distributed to the farmers who need it the most during what she calls these challenging times. Well, crop growers, if you want to update your yields for the Price Loss Coverage Program and haven't yet done so, the clock is ticking. Here's more from the USDA's Gary Crawford.
Farmers, if you want to update your yields for the USDA Price Loss Coverage Program and haven't done so, you only have a few days left to do it. Those yields, of course, are used to calculate PLC payments. And USDA's Farm Service Agency Administrator Richard Fordyce says farmers and landowners have not had the chance to update those yields since 2014, and a lot can change in 6 years. And so
it's going to be worth the landowner's effort to at least take a look at that and see if it's going to be advantageous for them to update those yields.
The deadline, again, to update yields is September 30th. Fordyce says if you don't make that deadline,
that's not going to be an issue. They'll just continue to use the yields that we have on file at FSA.
This is Gary Crawford reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
A program that provides information and help to farmers, ranchers, and other farm workers with disabilities or other limitations is about to launch a month-long effort to spread education in 19 states. Organizers announced that the AgriBility Virtual State Fair will run through the month of October, highlighting its support for the agricultural industry. The Kansas AgriBility Project will be featured on October the 22nd. AgriBility is funded through the USDA's National Institute of Food and Agriculture. Its primary purpose to provide services and information to aid producers, ranchers, and farm workers who are affected by a disability, a functional limitation, or health condition. The project manager for the National AgriBility Project, Paul Jones, said that the idea for the virtual state fair grew from the fact that one of the primary ways to reach the agricultural community through county and state fairs was largely canceled this summer and fall. Now, many of the services provided by AgriBility are free. The Kansas AgriBility program, which is based here at K-State, can help provide on-site farm assessments to identify barriers and challenges, recommendations for safe and appropriate assistive technology such as equipment or efficient modified work practices, referrals on agriculture, safety and disabilities, educational training opportunities, referrals to outside agencies for assistance such as for funding or occupational and physical therapy, and peer support to connect farmers with each other. You can learn more about Kansas AgriBility at agribility.ksu.edu. That's agrability.ksu.edu. Coming your way next, the weekly Kansas soybean update. And standing by, as always, with that is Gregg Eyestone. Gregg?
Loretta Scholl is joining us. She is a culinary instructor and Family and Consumer Science Department Chair at Olathe Northwest High School. And Loretta, your department also participates in the Kansas Soybeans as a Food Educational Program, which is sponsored by the Kansas Soybean Commission. Tell us about the purpose of the program itself.
The purpose of the program for us is that it helps us provide us with opportunity to teach the students more about healthy lifestyle and diet. So many of our students are now interested in food science. K-State's one of the places they head to, dietetic, nutrition, personal trainer, physical therapist, sports med, all of those things. So it really fits in well because I call it like the super bean because it's so high in protein, it's high in fiber. I only buy soy oil for even baking or any of the food that we prepare here. It's cholesterol free, it's very low in saturated fat. For the kids that struggle with dairy, it's lactose free, so we can use that in our nutrition and wellness classes when we're making smoothies. It's got omega-3 acids, and they don't realize how much soy they're already eating until we get into it, and I would start to talk about it. The nutrition and wellness class actually has a vegetarian unit, and they don't think they're going to like tofu. And edamame, they love that. But we had a parent that came to parent-teacher conferences, and she said, my son never ate anything green, and now he eats this for breakfast.
And really, too, to show the importance of the livestock industry to soybean farmers, teach them a little bit about that, too.
When I talk and I tell them about the program and what a generous contribution they help because groceries never go down and budgets don't ever seem to go up, that half of the money that's provided through the program can be towards beef or dairy products because I think 80% goes towards feed for livestock.
Being able to participate in this, if you're a teacher, you're provided with some supplemental funds for the program, too?
We get $2 per student that we have enrolled in a culinary class, and that really adds up because we have 2 culinary teachers in this building, and budget's always very tight.
And you can go to kansassoybeans.org for more information about how to participate in the program. Loretta, I appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, the Kansas Soy Commission, for your support.
Loretta Scholl is joining us, culinary instructor and Family and Consumer Science Department Chair at Olathe Northwest High School, here on the Kansas Soybean Update. It's brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission.
Thanks, Greg. And a very quick reminder here, K-State's 2020 Virtual Beef Stalker Field Day is a week from today, October the 1st. You can still register for this free event. Check it out at ksubeef.org. This is Agriculture Today.
Social distancing slows the spread of coronavirus, so stay a minimum of 6 feet away from others and stay home if you can. More info at coronavirus.gov. Let's all do our part, because we're all #alone together. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
For you now on Agriculture Today, our weekly horticulture segment and something for the here and now, and that is planting those spring flowering bulbs. And along with us is Riley County Extension Horticulture Agent Gregg Eyestone to walk through the procedure here, which is pretty straightforward but needs to be followed, Greg, nonetheless. First off, when to plant? Any time now?
Yes, probably the soil temperatures need to be around 60 degrees or cool down to that before you start thinking about planting. So we're getting there. You can obviously go to the Mesonet and check out anything close by you as far as soil temperatures. So anything in the 60 or below is good. And you can actually plant up till about the time the ground freezes. That may not be the most enjoyable time to be outside planting. So you might schedule it for when it's convenient for you and the temperatures are right.
Might address the question that frequently comes up, why plant bulbs in the fall instead of in the spring? And there is a purpose behind this.
They need to go through a chilling requirement for that flower bud to engage and start growing, and so that's why we plant them here in the fall. Of course, you can do some forcing, so artificially induce them by putting them in the refrigerator if you want to put some in some containers and have maybe an interior decoration of flowers as well.
Planting site, does it matter when we think about such things as exposure to the sun and the like?
Most of these beautiful flowers require lots of sunlight energy to fulfill their flower production, flower buds for the following year. Now, if you're buying flower bulbs now at this time, the flower's already in there, and it's not going to matter. All the food energy is in there, so you want to probably purchase the larger bulbs. They're going to have the more beautiful, bigger flower. So you're thinking about the following season of having a nice, beautiful flower, then sunlight typically is required. Some of them will tolerate a little bit more shade. Let's say some of the narcissus, daffodil type will probably tolerate a little bit more shade, but still we're talking at least 6 hours of direct sunlight a day would be preferred. Everybody has a little bit different conditions, and so you still want to enjoy these flowers. Flowers make people happy, especially in the springtime when things have been probably pretty dreary out. So I encourage you to think about planting them if you haven't, or enlarge your planting. Pick as much sunlight as possible.
Do these bulbs function well in various kinds of soils? Does the constitution of that soil make a difference?
Yes, bulbs being storage units don't like a lot of moisture around the bulb, so mainly well-drained soil is the key. You need to locate them where you can see them, and hopefully those soil conditions are there. But if not, trying to add some type of internal drainage, particularly organic matter, is what we encourage, working into the planting site if you need to. You can raise them up a little bit, grow them on a berm, if you will, to give those roots and those bulb storage units a little bit more oxygen if you can, to let them dry out.
Well, then the planting itself, the depth of bulb planting makes a difference here, right?
Yeah, and I see there's lots of different answers to that, looking at some different extension websites and things like that. Some will say 2 to 4 times the diameter of your bulb is what you should plant. So if we're going to average that out, maybe 3 inches or 3 times the bulb diameter. And that's at the bottom of your planting hole. So there's also a lot of information, particularly when you purchase them, will tell you plant them 2, 3, 6 inches deep, and usually some spacing on that as well, whether it be 2, 3, 6 inches apart when you plant those.
But that depth does relate to the size of the bulb.
Right. The smaller bulbs you're going to plant shallower, so if you don't like to dig deep, you may want to go with some of the smaller bulbs. But particularly, and again, I think there's a little bit of leeway there. And if you're using some mulch, that will play into the factor of how deep to plant them as well. So if you got a sandy soil that has good drainage, you may plant them as deep as the label says and put a couple inches of mulch over that to protect them as well.
Everyone, Gregg, has their own style, but the preference here largely is to not plant these necessarily uniformly in a row, but rather clump them together to provide a different color display.
Probably a more natural look is what typically we come with. Think about perennials in general, usually kind of a rounded form to those, so you space those out and plant them. I've heard one time you just put them in a bucket and throw them on the ground, and wherever they lay is where you put them. You may need to space them out a little bit more, but generally we don't plant them in a cultivated row like you may your vegetable garden.
Right. And the planting itself then, you dig the hole, you place the bulb, and then covering that up. Any particular tricks to the trade here?
Yeah, I want to highlight soil testing. You may want to soil test at some point. If you have never done that, I encourage you to do at least once in your time to know what your soil has. You may need to add a little bit of fertilizer to that. That would depend on that soil test. But let's say it does come back, need to add a little bone meal or something with a little phosphorus in there. You put that in really work that a little bit below your bulb. That's where the roots will be forming, so that's where those fertilizer needs will be. Then you pack it in with your soil. Pack it in, maybe needs just put soil over the top of it, water it in, make sure those bulbs are pointed up. You want to make sure you plant your bulbs in the right direction, because otherwise it'll really slow down the process. If you can plant them about as evenly depth, they're going to probably bloom at a more uniform time and make a more attractive display. Mulch probably not a bad idea just to get through the fall and winter season, and they should be good to go.
All right. Lastly here, though, be selective about your bulbs and maybe be adventurous at the same time. There's a lot out there, Gregg.
There are a lot out there. One that I've really fallen in love with is the alliums or the ornamental onions. purple and white. They come in, so that's a favorite of mine, so that's a good choice. They also have interesting flower stalks. Many of these flowers, you know, once they're done blooming, you go ahead and cut them off, make it more attractive. Leave the foliage there as long as you can so you have some production for next year. But the alliums will have some interesting flower stalks that you can use as dry cut flowers or in arrangements and things. So check into alliums, but the tulips, of course, they're loved by deer and other wildlife, so right. Take that in precaution. The narcissus, daffodils bloom continuously year after year. Tulips are maybe a little bit more of an annual crop. Crocuses, hyacinths, lots of options out there.
Take advantage of what is available. Explore the alternatives as you go about selecting spring flowering bulbs for planting from now through the rest of the fall. Greg, thanks for coming over.
It's been my pleasure.
He's the Riley County Extension Horticulture Agent, Gregg Eyestone, on this week's Horticulture segment. That's our time for today. As always, we appreciate you listening in. Please rejoin us right here tomorrow. Until then, Eric Atkinson for Agriculture Today. This is the K-State Radio Network.